Welcome back. I'm Brian Tier, pastor of Tyler Road Baptist Church in Henderson, Texas. Today's Sunday school lesson covers Proverbs chapter 11, chapter 12, and chapter 13. Now, last week, if you read chapter 10, it's a lot like 11, 12, and 13. Remember when we first started this, I told you how Proverbs is broken up, and I think this is very important for you to understand. This is more what people think of when they think of the Proverbs, is the short clips that you see in many different subjects, many different topics that you're going through. And a lot of times these are the parts that people have so much trouble understanding about the Proverbs, especially if you're reading through the scriptures, reading through the Bible, you're trying to figure out just what does all of this mean, okay? And I've heard this through the years. I mean, we've been reading it for many, many years, and so for me, it's hard to not understand or have an understanding of these things in a way, but I also understand it too. Number one, let me just say this. Maybe I should have said this all the way at the very beginning. Before you give up on reading a book of the Bible, be sure you read it. You may find that funny, but a lot of people will start a book, and because it's hard to understand, they quit before they've read it. All right, so this book is only 31 chapters long. As I've told you, you could take one proverb a day on a 31-day month and cover the whole thing. All right, so there's really no reason for you not to read the book. Number two, after you read the book, okay, and this is I do this when I'm preaching through books, anything like that, you need to back away from it and say, what is the author trying to get across to us? How has he broken this up? Because you've got to understand, this book called the Bible has been around for thousands of years now. There's reasons why each one of these books have a place, okay? And so if they were just terrible and they just could not be understood, probably wouldn't even be in here. God wouldn't waste his time giving us something that we don't understand. And then you need to start trying to rightly divide the word. Now that does take work. It's work to do it, okay? But 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15, memory verse, study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. All right, so it takes dividing it up. Like we said last time, you could really divide it up into the first 9 chapters being letters, both from Solomon to his son, or wisdom to us, foolishness to us, the wicked. You see all of those things in the first 9 chapters. Chapter 10 through chapter 29 cover what we call the Proverbs of Solomon. Okay, these are the sayings. These are the short clips of comparison and contrast with different things, and that goes on to chapter 29. And then you have 2 more letters, chapter 30 and chapter 31. 30 and 31 are letters, okay, both from Agar and King Lemuel. All right, and we'll see those later on. So we're into the heart of this. So like I was saying, if you read last week's text, chapter 10 is a lot like chapter 11, is a lot like the chapters following it. All right, and it has all of these comparison and contrast, and that's what they are. It's not a story per se, although he will get on a topic and he'll stay on there for a few verses. It may switch up topics several times in a chapter, and so it's very important. And I think this is what people really have trouble with, and I do too. That's one of the reasons why it's tough for me to read when I'm reading through the Bible. Psalms and Proverbs are very tough because that they swap subjects. Psalms does it by the chapter. Proverbs can do it by the verse, and so you really have to be paying close attention. Like if you're reading a story, you're in the story, and so you've already got a idea where it's going and all this kind of stuff. This one, though, you got to keep your mind going. And when we do these with the family, it's nearly every day I have to like say, okay, now what did that verse just say? Because if not, you can blow through the whole chapter and not even pick up one thing about it. It's very, very easy to do. Okay. So the other thing is that the work that goes in this, that's involved in this, is taking and separating the Proverbs into subject matter. All right. And so this takes, you can take a sheet of paper and write these things down. That's what I did. I'm not sure exactly how the teaching of these is going to go today. I've never taught through the book of Proverbs, mostly because of this. All right. It takes a little bit of jumping around. I like to go verse by verse by verse. And so we are going to try to jump around a little bit today. All right. So you just bear with me here, and we're going to look at the different subject matters that are mentioned in these chapters. So we're going to do chapter 11 and chapter 12, but you could do this all the way through and just keep you a running sheet of the different subject matter, the different things that are being compared. All right. So we'll start with chapter 11 and verse 1 without further ado. But I think that all that bears stating, because it will help you when you're studying this to understand what you're getting into before you get into it. All right. It says, a false balance is an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. So here he's talking about honesty, and he compares a false balance with a just weight. You can also see that he's comparing an abomination to the Lord with the Lord's delight. What does the Lord delight in? What is an abomination to him? So you could really go either way with that, and you'll see that through this. And that's also the other part is like, where do you divide it? You just have to decide for yourself I've put this under the heading of honesty. He talks about honesty here. A false balance. Now, this is something that we don't use. We do use it. We just don't think about it because we don't have scales. But in the day where they had scales, you'd go to the supermarket and you'd buy hamburger meat, let's say. All right. They would put the meat on one side of the scale, and then he would have his weights sitting on the other side to tell you how much. So you'd put a 1 pound weight on one side, and then you'd take the hamburger and put enough hamburger that it would balance it out. All right, that's the way that they weighed things. The Lord doesn't like a false balance. In other words, what you could do is you could take your 1 pound weight, shave off a little bit of that weight and set it on there, and it says 1 pound on it, and you set it on one side and you put the hamburger meat, and you may only be getting 3/4 of a pound. Okay. And so this happens in various things. There's a movie years ago. I hadn't seen it in a long time. I now kind of want to watch it again after reading this and thinking about it. I think it had James Cagney in it, and he was a weights and measures guy. And he went around measuring, like the gas pumps, making sure that they weren't being dishonest with the scales on that, and the scales at the grocery store and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, it was a good movie, and that's kind of what it reminds me of. But God hates that when we use, and he talks about this several different times, diverse weights and diverse measures. Both are like an abomination to the Lord. The Lord likes it when we use the same measurements. And this goes to not just weighing things out, but Jesus talks about this on judging. Judge not lest you be not judged. For whatever measure you're measured with is going to be whatever measure used for others is the same measure that you should use on yourself. Okay, and so this is all really talking about the same thing, is that we need to use the right measurements. Don't rip people off. Be honest. God doesn't like lying, and that's what it boils down to, is that we're lying about saying, yep, you got whatever, but they really didn't get it. And it's also not good if you use one set of scales for one person and another set of scales for someone else. Those are an abomination to the Lord. An abomination is a pretty big word to use with the Lord, but he doesn't like it because it's lying. And we saw that in chapter 6. One of the things that God hates is dishonesty. He hates lying. And so we need to be careful about how we measure things and how we measure people. Okay. All right, and also honesty is talked about in verse 3. The integrity of the upright shall guide them, but the perverseness of transgressors shall destroy them. All right, so we're talking about integrity and perverseness. Be upright. Do always use honesty in the things that you do. And then also in verse 9, a hypocrite with his mouth destroys his neighbor, but through knowledge shall the just be delivered. Okay, so you have a hypocrite. A hypocrite says one thing but means something else. It's also where we get like actor. But whenever you do that and you act one way to your neighbor, then it's not good. It's not going to end good. All right, and so those are the three verses that I came up with on that subject of honesty. Now, if we back up here, there's another topic in verse 2 about humility. When pride comes, then comes shame. But with the lowly is wisdom. So you have the comparison or contrast between being prideful and being lowly, being humble. All right, and so it's very what God is looking for is He's not looking for pride or arrogancy or anything like that. He is the reason why we have anything that we have. So we really don't have anything to be prideful about. Okay, so when we're prideful, it brings us down. Pride comes before a fall. Okay, and so this is what we're looking at here. But with the lowly, if you're humble, is wisdom. There's wisdom in being lowly. There's wisdom in being humble because you're actually being honest with yourself and you're being merciful to those that are around you. Okay, so that's another topic that we have. Now, we'll skip down here to verse 4. We covered verse 3. Verse 4 here talks about riches. And so wealth is talked about a lot in the Proverbs, and this will be a big subject for you. And I have verses 4, verse 15, 16, 24, 25, 26, 28, and then in chapter 12, verses 9 and verse 11. Okay, all talk about wealth. So there's a lot of them here. I don't know if we'll cover all of them or not, but we'll cover a few of them here. Verse 4 says, riches profit not in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivers from death. Okay, so with your wealth, you may think this is going to be everything that I ever need. And it will be while you're here on this earth, maybe. But it will not. One of the things that will not deliver you from is the wrath of God. One of these days, you'll stand before God, and He is not going to ask you to pull out your bank statement to see how much money you have, to whether He can let you into heaven or not. What He is going to do is He's going to look at your righteousness. Righteousness delivers from death. However, we don't have enough righteousness to get us into heaven, do we? That's a problem. That's a huge problem is that we don't have the righteousness. Righteousness delivers from death. And so a lot of people think, well, because I'm not righteous, I need to get riches. But riches won't profit you either. So if it's only by righteousness and we don't have it, then we need to obtain righteousness from somewhere else. Do you know where I'm going with this? I hope you do. If you've been listening, you do. Our righteousness comes from Jesus. One of the things that Jesus did was that He died on the cross, not because He needed to die to get right with God, but we did. He did that for us so that He was our substitutionary sacrifice. Just means that He stood in our place. When He died on the cross for our sins, He did it for us. He didn't do it for His sins. He did not commit anything wrong. Pilate said it. Everyone said it. He did not do anything wrong. Okay? So He did it for a different purpose, and that different purpose was for us, so that we could have Christ's righteousness on our behalf. And so when we trust in what Jesus did, we put our faith, we put our trust in Him, He will save us, and that is what will deliver us from death. Isn't that beautiful? I mean, this is so good. This is all the way back there in the times of Solomon. Righteousness is what delivers from death. Okay, riches won't profit, but righteousness will. And the righteousness that we have is the righteousness of Christ. All right, so let's stay with this theme of wealth. We'll come back to verse 5 in just a second. But let's skip down here to verse 15. He says, he that is surety for a stranger shall smart for it, and he that hates suretyship is sure. Okay, so now one of the things that happens here in Proverbs as well is that, and especially if you're reading it in King James Version, there's a lot of words that we just don't use today, and that makes it hard to be understood too. But we have a couple of different things that we could use to figure this out. Number one, we could, I know on mine here, I could just highlight that and it would give us a definition of it. Or you could use a thing called Webster's Dictionary. That would help you out a lot. I could click, if it was on regular performance, I could click that cross there. It would tell you as well what the word means. You could Google it. There's a lot of ways we can find out answers. And again, a workman needeth not to be ashamed. Okay, there's always going to be words in just about everything that I've ever read where I have to look up the word, see what it means. All right, we're teaching our girls that. Is that when you don't understand something, and what they do is they just ask me or Kate what the word means. But I say that's what we have dictionaries for. Get in there and find it in the dictionary and find out what it means. Okay, and that's a very good way to do it. Okay, so what are we talking about here? He that is surety for a stranger, he stands sure for a stranger. In other words, you're using your name to help someone else out. Whether it's co-signing for them, saying, hey, I will stand good for this person. If you do it for a stranger, a foreigner, if you do it for someone that you don't know very well, you're going to smart for it. Okay, and he talks about this a lot in the book of Proverbs. Don't be going around co-signing. Okay, if you do, you'll wind up losing your bed out of the situation. He talks about that in here. He warns his sons and warns us about that a lot. And he that hates suretyship is sure, okay, because you're not using your name for anyone else. But when you use your name, when you stand good for someone else, whatever the case may be, you're putting your name, your good name on the line. But if you don't do that, then you can be assured that everything's going to be okay because you're the one that is, you haven't done it. All right. In other words, verse 16, a gracious woman retains honor and strong men retain riches. Okay. So graciousness, we have the contrast here is a gracious woman and a strong man. All right. And there's a lot of debate on what this means here. But I think that what we see here is graciousness gets honor, and strong men, the only thing that they have are violent men, is another way to put this, retain riches. You can do it through violence, you can do it through being strong or tough or whatever, but that's not necessarily a way to gain honor. You'll gain riches from it, but you won't gain honor. And again, there's more to wealth than just money. All right, and so you can imagine what that would lead to if you only use violence. Okay, so we got 15 and 16 there, and then we'll skip down to verse 24. Let's say 24 says, there is that scatters and yet increases, and there is that withholds more than is meet, but it tendeth to poverty. Okay, so this is talking about being generous. When we're generous, we increase. How that works is that's God's math, God's economy. That's the way it works. It is more blessed to give than it is to receive. And it's hard to understand how that it would be that your finances would be better if you're a generous person. But I'm going to tell you something, that's the way that it is. You increase, and it's not just in your finances that you increase. Your health, your well-being, everything is better when we're generous. And so it is very, very good to be generous. Okay, this is a biblical topic from Genesis to Revelation, is that we need to be generous people, and we will be. If we're thankful people, if we're content people, we will be. But if you withhold more than you need, then it leads only to poverty. And again, this isn't poverty and riches. You can be a rich miser. You know what I mean? If you don't, just watch Scrooge. What's it called? The Christmas Carol. All right, that's a good rendition of that. A very wealthy man, but he had nothing. Okay, and that's the way that it is. It leads to poverty because you're just trying to withhold everything and put it in the bank and all this kind of stuff, and you're really just doing that for somebody else. I mean, whenever you die, it doesn't go with you, and so you need to be watchful on that. Be generous with the things that you have. Don't withhold more than what you need. Okay, because if you do, then it's not gonna work out too well. All right, let's see here. 25. Yeah, I was going to say I think this goes right along with it. The liberal soul shall be made fat. This is the same concept. He that waters, it shall be watered himself. He that withholds the corn, the people shall curse him, but blessing shall be upon the head of him that sells it. All right. So again, this is the whole meaning and the whole purpose behind having wealth is so that we can help, so that we can get out there and be a help to other people. If you're not being a help to other people, then you're not getting the most out of the things that you have. Okay. Again, this doesn't mean that you're going out and using your name. You're not co-signing for them or anything like that, but you can use the things that you have to be a blessing to other people. And whenever you are, then you will also be blessed. A liberal soul will be made fat. He that waters it shall be watered also himself. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, I think that about covers all of that. Okay. Let's see. One more verse here, verse 28. He that trusteth in his riches shall fall, but the righteous shall flourish as a branch. So we have he that trusteth in his riches shall fall. That's what you're trusting in, but the righteous shall flourish. And so whenever you're righteous, you're also generous, and whenever you're generous, you will flourish. Okay, so again, all the way through, you'll see this as you go. Now, again, chapter 12, I was going to look at that too, but let's stick with chapter 11 here with all of the things that we've got going on. But if you look at chapter 12, it's verses 9 and verse 11 also talk about wealth. Okay. Now let's back up here. This is the biggest subject that I saw, the contrast and comparison. Let's go back here to verse 4. And as we covered verse 4 in wealth, but we also see something else here as well. And this is the comparison about, well, I'll tell you what, let's just go to verse 5. I already covered it. So, the righteous of the perfect shall direct his way, but the wicked shall fall by his own wickedness. Now, this is something that you're going to see as well. Again, this is the biggest subject. This is, and that's what I was going to do, comparison between righteousness and foolishness. And we see this in verse 4, verse 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 27, 29 through 31. Okay, so all of these cover the comparison between righteousness and evil or wickedness or foolishness. Okay, so the first comparison we have here is the righteousness of the perfect shall direct his way, but the wicked shall fall by his own wickedness. So we have here, if you want to be directed by your way, you go in the way of righteousness. If you want to fall, then you'll go by wickedness. Now, the other comparison that I know of in the scriptures with this is light and darkness. And you can see how that would work, right? If you're walking in the light, if you're walking in righteousness, then you can see your way just fine. If you're walking in wickedness, then you're going to fall. You're going to stumble because you're walking in darkness as well. The righteousness of the upright shall deliver them, but transgression shall be taken in their own naughtiness. So if you walk in righteousness, you'll be delivered. But if you're walking in a sinful way with transgressions, you'll be taken away, taken in your own naughtiness. All right, and this is kind of a reference to be taken to jail, be taken away because of going your own way. Where does it lead to? And the end of that, the wages of sin, all sin, is death. That's where it ultimately leads to. When a wicked man dies, his expectation shall perish, and the hope of unjust men perishes. Okay, so whenever you're living a wicked life, when you're living an unjust life, all you have is this life. You don't have the expectation of heaven. Even for a Christian, whenever we walk in wickedness, and you do it for long enough, I'm going to say it's 2 Peter, 1 Peter or 2 Peter, talks about this in the first chapter, that if you're not adding to your faith virtue and patience and all of the whole list there, temperance and charity and brotherly kindness, if you're not adding all of those things, you're neither fruitful in your walk with Christ. And it goes on to say that if you continue on in that path, then you've forgotten that you were purged from your old sins. A wicked person, a person that's living in wickedness, that's walking in the ways of this world, is not clear on whether they're really saved or not. Now, they may remember a time whenever they accepted the Lord as their Savior, but I can tell you something, that in their own mind and in their own heart, their salvation is not sure. Now, it's sure with God. If they're saved, they're just as saved as they are, but they can walk through this world without having expectations of going to heaven. They're thinking, I'm not sure about this because of the way that I've been living. All right, whenever we're walking in a sinful way, our expectations perish of ever going to heaven. The unjust man, the same thing. His hope perishes as well, because that they can't truly say that they're going to be in heaven. And so it really gives you nothing to live for. All right. Verse 8. Boy, we really could preach on every one of these, right? The righteous is delivered out of trouble, and the wicked cometh in his stead. So first we have the righteous. He's delivered out of trouble, as we've seen that all the way through. He's going to be delivered, whether in this life or the life to come. And the wicked comes in his stead. Okay, whenever he's delivered out of trouble, the wicked go right into the place where the righteous were. See where that is? Trouble, right? He comes right behind him. He goes into it. The righteous is delivered out of it, but it leaves a vacant spot, and that vacancy is for the wicked. All right, so that's what it's talking about. But you see here, go back to our beginning subject. You see how you have to kind of put some thought into this. What does this mean? And that's what he talks about in the first chapter, is that these are the dark sayings of the wise. You don't just read that and come up with that. You have to pay attention to the contrast and all of the things that goes with it. And every time that you come back to these, you have to almost do the same thing. You have to go back into it and say, all right, now what does that mean? What does Solomon try to get across here to us? Okay, now let's skip down to verse 10 here. We covered verse 9. When it goes well with the righteous, the city rejoiceth, and when the wicked perish, they're shouting. Boy, this is very prevalent for our day and time. We just saw a righteous man who was assassinated, right, live on TV. Okay, and what we saw on Sunday when everybody got together, they were rejoicing, even though that he had been assassinated, because that they knew he was in heaven with Jesus, and the works that he is doing are going to live on after him, which is very could be seen very well. But when the wicked perish, okay, when you have people that are wicked, that we've seen this too in the past little while. When the wicked perish, then they're shouting. We see rioting in the streets. We see buildings burning. We see all of those kinds of things. Do you see the point? I mean, this isn't just in our day and time. This is truth over time. That's the way that it is. Verse 11, by the blessing of the upright, the city is exalted, but it is overthrown by the mouth of the wicked. Again, this is what happens whenever we whenever we're living for Jesus and we're living out what he wants us to live out, there's a blessing. Okay, there's a blessing to those that are upright. The city is exalted whenever righteousness comes into it and righteousness is being done. But it's overthrown with just the mouth. Mouthy people can overthrow a city, can overthrow a country even with their wickedness. Man, we're seeing this. This is the reason why this stuff needs to be read and needs to be said, right? Okay, let's go on here. Let's skip down to verse 17. Okay, we have the merciful man doth good to his own soul, but he that is cruel troubles his own flesh. So first of all, we have the merciful man. Okay, he is, and this again could be said, the righteous man, the righteous and the wicked, or whatever that you want to compare in contrast here. The merciful man does good to his own soul, but he that is cruel troubles his own flesh. Now this is talking about his own self. When we're merciful to others, it does good for ourselves. But when we're cruel, it does terrible to ourselves. It causes us to be in pain. We think that it's, again, our old flesh thinks, boy, I'm just going to lash out. I'm going to do what I want to do. I want to say what I want to say. I don't want to be merciful. I don't want to be kind. I don't want to be gentle. I don't want to be patient. I don't want to be all of these things that are the fruits of the Spirit. Well, guess what? When you do that, you do hurt them, but you're not just hurting them. You hurt your own self. But when you're merciful, when you forgive them, when they don't deserve it, you're being actually good to your own self. Good stuff, huh? The wicked works a deceitful work, but to him that sows righteousness shall be a sure reward. All right, we could go on here. As righteousness tends to life, so he that pursues evil pursues it to his own death. Do you see here? Righteousness, life. Evil, death. Righteousness, reward. Wicked, deceit. Do you see? I mean, this is, again, you can see this played out in today's times. You can probably see it even in your own life, how all of this works. They that are of a froward heart, evil heart, are an abomination to the Lord. But such as are upright, so we have the contrast here, froward and upright, in their way are his delight. So uprightness, pleasing to God. Frowardness, perverseness, all those things are an abomination to the Lord. Okay? Though hand join in hand, the wicked shall not be unpunished, but the seed of the righteous shall be delivered. All right, now I really like this because we see this played out a lot too. We see this in churches, we see this everywhere we go in our families. Just because that you join hands with something doesn't mean that they're not going to be punished. As a matter of fact, you might be signing up for their punishment. You may not have done what they've done, but because you joined hands with them, you may be involved in their punishment. Okay, so just because you join hands with them doesn't mean that it makes it all good. Even if you're doing good, it makes you bad. All right, but the seed of the righteous, though, if you want to be, you stay with the righteousness. Don't join hands with the wicked. Stay with the righteous. Join hands with the righteous, because that's where deliverance is found. So be sure you stay with people that are righteous. Okay. Boy, we could just preach from now on. All right. What do we just covered? Verse 20. Let's go to skip down here to and we did 21. All right, skip down to verse 27. He that diligently seeketh good procures favor. So we say good gets favor. But he that seeks mischief shall But he that seeketh mischief, it, meaning mischief, shall come unto him. So if you want to have a mischievous life, seek after mischief. Okay? If you want to have a good life, if you want to have favor, then seek after good. Good contrast, right? All right. What else? Let's see, verses 29 through 31. He that troubles his own house shall inherit the wind, and the fool shall be servant to the wise of heart. Trouble, you go after trouble, and you're going to inherit the wind. And a fool, he that troubles his own house, will inherit wind. A fool will be servant to the wise of heart. The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life. He that wins souls is wise. Behold, the righteous shall be recompensed in the earth, much more the wicked and the sinner. Okay, so if the righteous are going to be judged, it's going to even be more so for the wicked. It may not seem like that they're getting what is coming to them, but let me tell you something. It is. The fruit of the righteous, same thing, brings a tree of life. He that wins souls, he that, I forget how the other versions puts this, but whenever you take souls, okay, he that taketh souls is wise. And it kind of has the same connotation to it, is that we're converting people to Christ, converting people to the truth, whatever the case may be. But you're converting them, you're taking those souls, and that's wise to do. And that's the fruits that we bear, okay, that the righteous bears. And then what we covered here, he that troubles his own house inherits the wind. No, there's no inheritance there. And a fool shall be servant to the wise of heart. So they may be thinking that they're laying up stuff for themselves, but actually they have nothing to be happy about. All right. So, and again, we could go into chapter 12 and do the same thing. Let me see here if I've covered all of our. Oh yeah, let's get back down to verse 11. It's also a very important one, very important subject. Boy, we're way off on time. Sorry about that. But let's go ahead and do this. Obviously, if you need to go ahead and go. But I don't know where you're going to. This is another important subject. We'll stop with this one though. By the blessing of the upright, the city is exalted, but it is overthrown by the mouth of the wicked. This is another big topic here. Your mouth. Okay, this is very, very good. Let's just jump through these really quick. Verse 12: He that is void of wisdom despiseth his neighbor, but a man of understanding holds his peace. All right, so we see the mouth, we see holding his peace. Verse 13: A talebearer, gossiper, reveals secrets. He that is of a faithful spirit, though, conceals a matter. A person that's not going to be going around talking about other people, talking bad about other people, those are the ones that you want to trust. Those are faithful. It's very good for us to practice that. It's easy for us to talk bad about other people and what other people do and all this kind of stuff, but we need to be faithful friends, don't we? Very important. And this speaks volumes. Hopefully to you, it does to me for sure. And because if there's one thing that we need to watch out for, it's our mouth. And we can be overthrown with our mouth if we're not very careful. And he talked about that in another place as well. And then verse 14, where no counsel is, the people fall. But in a multitude of counselors, there is safety. And so it's very important for us to understand when to speak as well. We need to give good counsel, because where there's no counsel, people fall. Okay, but where there's a multitude of counselors, there's safety. Listen to more than one person. Don't just listen to one voice. Listen to multiples and make sure that what they're saying lines up with God's word. If they do that, then you're going to be in the right way. So, and chapter 12 speaks of this, verse 14, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 23, and 25. Okay, I think we've pretty much covered chapter 11. There's one in there about beauty and discretion of a woman too, but we'll hit that at a different time. All right, hopefully this has been helpful to you, because again, in just 40 minutes here, we've devoured, and I actually had like a 6-minute window. So in about 30 minutes, you can take a proverb apart and put it back together and make it meaningful. And that's what we have to do. We have to study these things out, and hopefully you will, because this is the wise counsel that we need on a daily basis. We need this for our business, for our families. We need to know what to say, when to say it. We need to know that we need to be using wisdom and not making foolish decisions. All this is found in the book of Proverbs. Okay? So enjoy. Let's pray. Father, thank you so much for this time that we've had to spend around your word. And even though that it was written thousands of years ago, as we can see, all of these things are still so true today. I pray, Lord, that you would just help us to seek after you and seek after your word each and every day, and that we would spend some time rightly dividing the word of truth. We love you, and we thank you for all that you do for us. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.